Hey everybody, it's Tim again with the University of Vinyl in Colorado. Hope you're all doing well. We've been hit with some tough news here in Colorado this week. We're just you got to power through and try to get to the other side. And of course, one of the things that helps people cope through the ages has been music. And I wanted to talk today about five collaborative efforts that I just love. And they range from the year 1967 all the way up to 1998. So about a 30-year span of different collaborative efforts that I'm going to outline today. So those were the unmistakable opening chords and strains of My Little Town. My Little Town is a Simon and Garfunkel song that was released in 1975. So remember, Simon and Garfunkel broke up after Bridge Over Troubled Water in 1970. Garfunkel went on to act in a couple films, Catch-22 and Carnal Knowledge. Paul Simon put out his debut that came out in 1971, self-titled Paul Simon, great album. Art Garfunkel ended up doing a couple other things just out of left field. He was at one point, I think, a math teacher in Connecticut for a while. But they did appear together, in 1971 at the Grammy Awards. They were on stage together. It was somewhat of an amicable parting. Simon just wanted to go his own way and dig into some different music, different rhythms, as we all know, which he did. And but the executives at Columbia are saying, well, when are we going to get the next Simon and Garfunkel album? And it wasn't coming. So in 71, they put out the Simon and Garfunkel, the first greatest hits album, which did amazingly well. But Paul Simon, kept on doing his own thing. But in 1975, he came to Art Garfunkel with a song, My Little Town, and said, hey, this might be good for your next album. What the critics were saying about Art Garfunkel at the time, and Paul Simon too, I think probably behind his back. None of his material, is really living up to the voice that he has, and it's all syrupy, sticky, sweet stuff. Where's the soul? Where's something of substance? So Paul Simon wanted to come to the rescue and give him My Little Town, and as fate would have it, they ended up doing it together. It's one of my favorite Simon and Garfunkel songs. So even though these guys were bandmates at one point in time, they got back together to do this collaboration. Of course, they would reunite several times down the line, but never on an album again as far as an original recording. There was a couple live albums that they did, and famously, Art Garfunkel was supposed to be on Hearts and Bones, the 1980 Paul Simon solo album, and they had a falling out, and Paul Simon wiped everything off the album that all the vocals that Garfunkel had already apparently laid down for Hearts and Bones. So that didn't happen. But the 1975 song was released, and it appeared on Paul Simon's solo album from that year, 1975. Still crazy after all these years. What an album. And it also appeared on Art's solo album from the same year, Breakaway. Love this cover shot. This was shot at Dan Tana's restaurant in Hollywood. It's an old school Italian restaurant, and I was reading about it. Apparently it was a kind of a setup staged photo, but they did it at the Dan Tana's restaurant. And next to Art is his ex-girlfriend who, if you read into it, tragically committed suicide in 1979, kind of threw Garfunkel into a tailspin. But it's a gorgeous song. It's one of my favorite collabs ever, and one of my favorite Simon and Garfunkel songs, My Little Town.
He used to lean upon me. Oh, Sally gets bigger every day. She evens out in a continuing way. Her finger on the pulse of every guy. But his whole life is just another try. Give me a heart to hang on to.
So in 1976, Ronnie Wood from the Faces and the Small Faces visited Pete Townsend and was looking for a loan. And Townsend kind of rejected that idea, but he said, hey, why don't we put out an album, and the proceeds should be able to help you quite a bit. So Ronnie Lane, being an affable guy, said, sure, let's do it. And what resulted was Rough Mix, released in 1977. I've got this MCA USA pressing. It sounds amazing. On the pressing front, apparently the UK pressing is the one to have. Classic Records also has a reissue that they put out in the mid-aughts. If you can find it, that would be nice to have too. But this is a gorgeous collaborative effort. Now, they didn't write together, so they each came up with their own group of songs. Townsend, in my opinion, has a stronger set, including, Hard to Hang On To. Keep Me Turning is an incredible Townsend composition. Street in the City has got a gorgeous string orchestration arrangement on it as well. But this is really an acoustic-based album. They enlisted some buddies, including Eric Clapton. Charlie Watts was on this as well. Ian Stewart, the keyboard player, old kind of road manager of the Rolling Stones, is on here too. But it just sounds great. It's a fun listen. It's not, it kind of set Townsend on his path towards, his solo albums that he would put out in the early 80s, late 70s. But Rough Mix is a beautiful album. I picked this up having not heard it before, originally on CD, kind of fell in love with it. And you can find this album pretty cheaply these days, 5, 6, 7, maybe $10. Well worth the investment in listening to. Hard to Hang On To. Townsend ended up playing that song a lot on his, he did some solo album tours in the early mid-90s. And Eddie Vedder turns up in... So another famous collaboration is, of course, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. It's appeared on the 1968 double album, the White Album. Who doesn't know that album? It's fantastic. What I have here is actually the direct metal mastering German cut. I think this is from 1986. It's really highly regarded in the Steve Hoffman forums. If you give any salt to those to that forum and the opinions there, but I actually found it on Discogs. Was really happy to have this, and it's a great pressing. You go back and try and find UK first or second run pressings, and you're looking at some serious dollars. This was actually north of 100, but you're looking at $200, $300, $400 for anything in decent condition that's a UK pressing. But anyway, the legend has it is George Harrison had a free day in might have been late 67, early 68, before this album was released. He had a song, and the story with the Beatles is they wouldn't let George do anything hardly ever. He had to fight tooth and nail to get any songs on the albums, and so he enlisted a buddy, Eric Clapton. Hey, come on in the studio with me. I'm going to work on this song. Let's see what we can put together on this. And Clapton's playing is unmistakable, of course, on that song. He's uncredited on the album. But he was very, very, legend has it, he was very reluctant. Hey, I don't want to be the only non-Beatle that's on a Beatles album, and this is not right. I'm not part of the band. This is not proper. And Harrison wouldn't have any of it and talked him into it, and the result is a fantastic collaboration from 1968, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. It appears, of course, on the White Album. So this is Nashville Skyline. This came out in 1969. Dylan went down to Nashville, rounded up an incredible array of Nashville session cats, and they put this album out. One of my favorite Bob Dylan albums. He's got that, it kind of threw people for a curve. It's like, what's he done with his voice? Why does he sound so good? But he's got that sweet voice on this album, which also showed up on Self Portrait, and even into the next album after that. I'm drawing a blank, but the cool collaboration on this album, of course, is with Johnny Cash. It's the lead track on the album. It's a cover version of Dylan's own "Girl from the North Country," which everybody knows was on originally the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan 1963. Anyway, "Girl from the North Country" is a gorgeous song, and I would like to know, I'm sure I can find out online, I didn't dig into it enough, what take was "Girl from the North Country" on this album with Johnny Cash? Was it take one? Because it's got some odd quirks and idiosyncrasies, but the song, it has an emotional heft and power to it. It's a great way to kick off this album. But both Cash and Dylan at different times in the song are off key, kind of a shambolic, shuffling version, but it sounds great. It's a cool way to lead off this album, and that's another of my favorite collaborations.
Will you please welcome Mr. Burt Bacharach?
So in 1998, kind of out of left field, we get this collaboration, this collaborative album with Elvis Costello and Burt Bacharach. Apparently the story is these two kind of collaborated on a song or two that was supposed to be featured on a soundtrack. And in working on that song or two, they came up with more ideas, and it kind of developed into a full-blown album, painted from memory, of course. This is the Mo-Fi edition. I am so happy to have this. It just sounds amazing. Mo-Fi did another repress of this album 2 or 3 months ago, and they send these emails out on a Wednesday or Thursday afternoon, and if you don't jump on them, if you don't have notifications set up for Music Direct or Mo-Fi, you're out of luck, because these things just come and go in 20 minutes in some cases. But I was happy to get this. And I bought this originally on CD in 1998. At that point in time, I had been in a little bit of a car crash. I had a broken leg, and I was like laid up for a while and not able to do much. And I remember I listened to the CD and just kind of fell in love with it, and ended up buying copies and giving them to friends for Christmas and other gifts and just saying, hey, you just got to listen to this album. You'll love it. Some of the songs here: In the Darkest Place, This House is Empty Now, The Long Division, Painted from Memory, of course, God Give Me Strength. But Costello has this just gorgeous vibrato voice on this album, and of course Burt Bacharach, the legendary arranger, conductor, orchestrator, worked his magic on this thing. And apparently Costello said all the songs are having to do with lost love and heartbreak. And if you listen to the album closely, you can definitely see that. But what a collaboration. This came out in 1998, Painted from Memory. Those were my 5. Let me know what everybody thinks in the comments. If you think I was wrong and egregiously missed some famous collaboration, I'm sorry I didn't include Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney's Ebony and Ivory. Didn't make my list. If you think that should have been in the list, let me know in the comments. Anyway, hope everybody has a good week, and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more of my videos. I'm working on more and really enjoying this. Take care.